Welcome to the part 2 of the Pendragon lecture, a book series that I have read, and so have 4 other people and no one else in the history of time. Um, it's pretty cool, it's pretty fun. The previous video is like 3 hours, and I hope that this does not take as long. This is recorded live on my stream at twitch.tv/OdipusRex, and this was a streamiversary event that I wanted to do for everybody, and it is a good time. With that, I will be trying to give as much detail as I can on each book. I think I have a pretty good way of doing it where I can get a lot more information out a lot quicker. And then, depending on how much time we have left, if we have any at the end, then we will, like play some games or something, you know? But anyway, we're gonna try, because like I don't I may have to re-record like redo the first half of the lecture like in the next week or two, or at least edit it down, if I wanted to make like a formal thing. But whatever, fuck all that shit, who knows. Okay, so Blackwater, we talked about Blackwater. This is where we ended up, where Kasha died. Shit's fucked. The big thing to remember is that Kasha died because the only way for them to help save Blackwater did involve Mark and Courtney, acolytes and not travelers, using the flume, and that caused the flume to crumble and destroy, and the crushing rock killed Kasha. It's a bad time. Who were the 4 other people? Yeah, I was gonna say, Katie's one of them. I think maybe Sal. Alright, so The Rivers of Zada. This is book 5, or book 6. Here is my special edition cover of book 6. The back of the book, just to give a quick little overview. The battle continues. In the territory of Zada, Saint Dane's influence has fueled the fire of discontent between 2 warring tribes, the Rokador and the Batu. This is also the territory where the traveler Lore lives as a member of the Batu. Together, she and Bobby must work to thwart Saint Dane's efforts to destroy Zada. But as Bobby pursues Saint Dane, he begins to see his quest as more than a series of adventures. It has finally become clear to Bobby the stakes are as high as it gets. All of Hala lies in Bobby's hands. Have a good night, Dark. No worries. And Emmy, thanks for coming and hanging out. I saw that earlier. I meant to say something, but no worries. So we are recording. We are all good. So this is the turning point of the series where we start to get, like, as dumb as this sounds, this book is where shit starts to get real, and thus the series starts to get good. Up until this point, like, Merchant of Death was just a fun adventure romp, because, it's also, like, it's getting your feet in, everything seems cool, it's fun, pretty much clear, like, we gotta win, and it's okay if you break a rule, don't break a rule, but if you do and you win, like, it's probably okay. Chloral is a fun time with some starting to get some more darker stuff. Neverwar is where we really, like, with Bobby having to let the Hindenburg blow up being a, like, tumultuous thing. And moving forward from that even is we had Reality Bug, which was an actual loss for the team, and then they did win on Elong by preventing the repeal of Edict 46, and getting the guards to Blackwater. And like they, defended it more or less. An important thing to note is that at this point, Gunny is without a hand and is stranded on Elong. Spader is stranded on Elong. Courtney and Mark went back to Second Earth, and Bobby headed with Lore to Zada. Okay? So Zada is like a desert. It kind of always makes it sound kind of like an Egypt-esque place. It's kind of like the vibe that we get. It's pretty cool. But Zada is in a drought. And the nature of the 2 tribes, there are the tribe that lives like up on the surface called the Batu. They're warriors, and they like fuck shit up. And the Rokador live underground, are a little bit more technologically advanced, but they're a lot weaker. By doing so, the Rokador are like white pasty boys, and then the the Batu tend to be much more darker skinned, and I don't know how to describe it. Like, yeah, that's basically it. Let me pull up the picture from the art. It is important only because Bobby looks like a Rokador, and that becomes incredibly important and makes it so that it's hard for him to hide, like blend in with the Batu, because he just can't. Um, and not that that's an issue until Saint Dane gets involved, because you know homogeny, totalitarianism, exploiting the working class. Those are all things that Saint Dane loves to cause his things. So, Rivers of Zada. I didn't think to grab a photograph. No, image. Copy image. Boom. Ooh. Let's do this. You're not seeing any of this. There you go. There. That gives an idea too. It kind of feels like it's kind of like a Mars-esque place and whatnot. So, pretty cool. Zada is in a drought, but tensions have gotten up because Bobby has gone to Zada multiple times. Like with Lore, they've like hung out there. They've done some like watched her do a tournament and stuff when he was with Alder and some other stuff like that. And there's a massive fucking drought where like even like the farms and stuff that they have to make food, there's no water. There's no water anywhere. There's like troughs for water sort of in the main streets of Zada or of Zazu, and the Batu are leading themselves are believing that the Rokador, since like they can like control like the underground water, that they are hiding the water. They're like forcing the Batu to be in a drought, either as like a power play or something. As like they're going exploring, they go to like they start to go to the farms and whatnot. Bobby forgets his cloak at one point, and so he is wearing the clothes of the Rokador, but with a big heavy cloak. You can kind of like blend in, especially with like the swirling sands. But there's a group of warriors in the Batu that are like the top tier fighters, that will be what's the they're called Geese, like the Gee warrior. And there's this one big Gee captain who like calls out Bobby for being a Rokador and starts to like goad him into a fight, and Bobby ends up like getting forced to, and like the warrior reveals himself to Bobby with his eyes that he's Saint Dane, and they start going back and forth, and like Bobby doesn't want to fight him, and he's just kind of like defending himself, and then Saint Dane gets really fucking furious, which is a thing that starts to happen a lot more, where like it's almost like he's like, I made a promise to somebody, but it doesn't matter. He just fucking annihilates Bobby, like breaks almost every bone in his body, just beating the shit out of him almost to death. He is stopped by Pele Azinj, who is the prince heir, the heir to the Batu royalty. Shows up and is like, what are you doing? Like, Pele Azinj is this really, really wonderful character who is, like, as the prince, he wants there to be peace between the two tribes, and is like, it's one of those things where it's like people can't wait for him to take the throne. People that are like, ready to see some like unity and like, some peace. He's a very fun, loving guy. It's there's not everything needs to be like responding with violence. So, does everything make sense so far? Are we all good? I know this is a lot immediately out the gate. I'm coming in fucking running. But yeah. Okay, cool. So, what is the deal here? What's going on? So, Bobby ends up, because he's getting beaten to shit, he's unconscious for like 2 weeks, and he's like been drugged for it, like to help heal. And he's been in the hospital for 2 weeks, and it's surprising that he can even get up and stand, which is our first inkling that the travelers are something different, because Bobby starts to realize during this time that like wounds that would normally kill somebody, he's recovering from, and that a lot of his wounds he tends to recover relatively quickly from. if you were to really stop and think about it, especially if you don't have access to like what Second Earth would call modern medicine and whatnot. Because like on Third Earth, which we've been to once before, like if you were hurt, like you could just go to a doctor that just goes like boop boop, they just scan you and fix you immediately. They're built quite a bit different, Karma. Yeah, absolutely. So he ends up like trying to go through recovery. It takes like a month of him trying to like recover, and like he realizes that after this like beatdown by Saint Dane, that this isn't just like a group of silly adventures. Not silly, but like, yeah, we got to stop them. It's important, but like sometimes violence is the answer, or at least it's a tool. And he, comes to Lore and is like, I need you to train me to be a warrior. I need to be able to better fight. Because Bobby is the lead traveler. There's a lot of weight on his shoulders all the time. And like Lore, for example, he has always looked to Lore as like a leader to him because she's fucking ripped badass who can just like kill people without a second thought with her sick ass staff. But she also like struggles in social situations. She is truly like no diplomacy, only violence. Alder is a good mix of both. Who's a good boy. Spader is like all diplomacy and some tomfoolery. Um, Aja is just clearly Brainiac stereotype of analytical. She has no combat prowess. It's all like tactical. And then Kasha was a really good fighter and a very skilled pilot until she died. But they are down a traveler, and two travelers are stranded on a territory that's already been saved. So it's a bit concerning. They decide to go to an abandoned training camp called Mirage, where Alder actually shows up in the flume, kind of to help Bobby get out of his funk, and they all decide to help train him. There ends up being like a kind of like a fun training montage of sorts where they're like at one point they wake Bobby up in the middle of the night and just start beating the shit out of him, and he can't see where any of these attacks are coming from, and it's to help him figure out like he needs to not only rely on his on sight, he needs to rely on his other like senses. This is very much about like Bobby getting like a power level increase. That's what this book. The Rivers of Sada, nah, the Rivers of Strength builds. Like that's what this is all about. One thing I didn't touch on earlier is that we do meet some friends. There's like Tigan guards, which are like royal guards or something like that, or like Rokador guards, some shit. Who it turns out that Lore is a friend with, named Boka. And Boka, it also kind of seems like him and Lore, like in another world, would have been together, sort of a thing, like that kind of level of best friendship. And like he ends up like coming to them, and they get attacked by the Tigan guards, who are just I forget exactly what they are, but they he ends up like getting like a mortal wound, and they leave because they're like, we were only here to kill Boka. You guys are fine. And Boka does let them know, like he kind of like whispers to them at some point, and he's like, looks at Laura and Bobby, and he goes, Kiddick is a nightmare. That's where you need to go. Kiddick being, I believe, the capital, or like like the actual city that like the Rokador are in, more or less. And like the problem is that if you were to go underground to go like a Rokador would know where to go because they have like platforms and stuff, but like Batu don't really know how to work and navigate themselves in the tunnels. And so like there's no way for them to fucking know. Knowing them, they'd walk straight into a trap, which they do multiple times. Um, they end up going to a festival, and this is one of the most best scenes in the book, um, where like I love it, and they end up I don't yeah the shit hasn't happened yet, so I'm also I like I said I'm gonna be leaving out a lot of stuff because if you are interested in reading these books, there's a lot of adventure. Like Katie can say, since I since she's read them, like there's like a lot that I'm leaving out because it's fun to experience those things. These are just like the major points. And also I realized when I went and explained the first book, I spent way too much time on shit that like play by play shit that didn't matter. I did a much better job of trying to summarize it over the last, like I did it all today, is all of this. So and like rereading it myself, like just like summaries and shit, so I have a better idea, and that way I can extrapolate like I am now. Um, uh, so they end up there's like a big festival going on in Zazu because like although they don't have water just yet, like it's something where it's like we still need to keep up with the traditions with the royal family and whatnot. And like Lore wears a really pretty dress. Like he has Bobby's given like special clothes because Pele Zinj, like who he's talked to a few times, like specifically asked for Bobby to come. Like he's like, I'd love to see you at the festival. And so although the tensions are still really high with the Batu and Rokador, and like Bobby is openly walking around up in Zazu during the festival because it's the festival, no one cares that he's a Rokador for now. He ends up like kind of going up to like the stage area where like Pele is, and Pele ends up seeing him, and he's like, "Oh, Pendragon, I'm gonna come down to talk to you." And because he's like a man of the people, he goes down to go talk to him, and gets assassinated. Full stop. And it's also very like convenient that Bobby is there. There's a Rokador there. Tensions and like panic starts to ensue. They bail before the panic does, but shit gets pretty bad. Um, Before that happens, though, there's a very sweet moment where Bobby leans in, like, because they're like getting really close, and I don't know if they're like holding hands or like they lean in to kiss, and like they both clearly have strong feelings for each other. But Lore says, although I appreciate it, we can't. It would be a distraction because like I can't let your feelings for me get in the way of doing what you need to do to help stop Saint Dane. Like, if it came down to it, like fucking leave me. Do not have attached. That is our goal. That is our mission. So it's pretty nuts. Um, so it's really sweet and good luck, Ada. It's a really sweet tender moment, and it's like because like I'll get to it here because I kind of do like the Bobby stuff, and then I'll do the Mark and Courtney stuff. Him and Courtney had just seen each other before Elong, and then Kasha died because of them and all that. And so reading these journals where Bobby's talking about his like growing feelings for Lore and them kind of exploring them is very like imagine reading that. Imagine reading that like your best friend that you have a crush on, like that you only get to see every so often is like, no, actually I've been pining after this person I'm hanging out with. Like they're allowed to. They're not like succumb to each other. And Courtney gets her own crush, but she gets a crush, and then she gets crushed, and then she gets crushed. So it's a good time. That was a joke for Katie. Um, so they end up essentially it involves the water where Saint Dane is having the Rokador like actually hold the water back, but it's been held back so much that like by letting it go, it fucking floods shit, and it's really fucked. And we get introduced to a Daigo machine. I don't know if we've gotten there yet. I might be getting ahead of myself, but Daigo machine is like like think Dig Dug, but like a big round sphere with a drill on it. But the drill can go on any part of it, and it's like kind of like window compartment, and it's meant so that they like the Rokador can travel however which way they want, and like in 360 degrees rotation and stuff. It's really really cool. Um, at one point, Saint Dane ends up just like fucking stabbing Lore like through the chest, like spears her through, and she dies. She's dead. And Saint Dane and Bobby start fighting for a minute because Bobby's filled with rage, and Saint Dane's like, I think I'm bored here. I'm gonna go, and he just like bounces off because they're outside of the flume. And Bobby is like freaking the fuck out over Lore's dead body right in front of him, in front of the flume. He doesn't know what to do, and he like is like pushing on her chest to like get her to live, and he like is like willing her to like live, and it's just like it's really tense and emotional. And Lore coughs and wakes up. Um, as Bobby realizes that the travelers, because he's been questioning it this whole time, the travelers are something different because he was able to heal her back to life. Hell yeah, no worries, hallucination. Have a good one. Um, but yeah, so we start to realize that like massive power boost, like the travelers are able to bring themselves like to bring another traveler back from the dead. Shit's nuts. And that's kind of where the book ends at. Overall, I believe, yeah, they lose Zada. Zada is lost because the water well breaks and it floods the Rokador and shit's fucked. It's very unfortunate that they lost. They lost and they lost her. You know, although Bobby got stronger, he's emotionally beaten down at the end of this, and it's very important. Courtney, Courtney Chetwynd, after dealing after realizing that she killed Kasha, her and Mark did, she gets incredibly depressed and like shies away from Mark, shies away from her therapist, shies away from everybody, and she ends up after like so much time, she decides to go to this she decides to no longer go to the same school as Mark, and she goes to this like prep academy place, this private school. And when she gets there, she meets this guy playing soccer because she's a big soccer player named Whitney Wilcox, who is kind of a lot like Bobby, honestly, like that like flirty like competitiveness, and they like flirt and shit. It's a good time. I know this is oh nope. Okay, timeout, boiled potato man. I thought I had turned off every sound alert. Oh, I thought they were all turned off, but great, wonderful. Woo! I guess I won't get copyrighted for that, so it's fine. But like, please don't redeem. Thank you. Um, so the we meet Courtney Wilcox or Whitney Wilcox, and they like he asks her out on a date. Um, Courtney like rides her bike everywhere because it's like dormitory style, sort of like boarding school sort of thing. So she like, is like, oh whatever, like oh I'll go meet you. Um, yeah, okay. So I'll go all the way through the Courtney and Whitney thing. So Courtney like is like riding her bike, and there's like she like into town. He asked her if she wanted to ride, and she said no. She rides her bike and gets chased by this car. She got chased by the car earlier in the book, but she ends up getting chased a second time, and she full on gets hit by a car. Like it runs her off the road, crashes into her with her bike, hits her, and then fucking leaves. Um, that being said, when the car hits her and she's lying like in a bush, like broken arms, like broken limbs, bleeding out, um, the car door opens and Whitney Wilcox comes out and says, "I told you I'd get you," and reveals himself to be Saint Dane. Um, as he has manipulated her to essentially fall for him and like take it away because he's like, I can still hurt Pendragon. Like, I don't need to be where he is to hurt him. And like leaves her for dead and just fucking drives away. Like fucking nuts. Meanwhile, in a the other fun part, and then Courtney is hospitalized. She is stuck in the hospital. Like she, I'll go into it because it's important. Um, Mark, on the other hand, if you guys remember, there was that like Andy Mitchell, like fucking bully guy from earlier. Well, with Courtney gone, like Mark is just by himself, and like he doesn't want to deal with Andy's shit. And it turns out that Andy is actually like smart. Like he's one of those where he's a big dumb bully. He's like disgusting. He smokes. He's just a slob, but like he is a bit of a science geek. Like he just would never show it. As they're both part of like their science club, more or less. He actually invites Mark to the science club. That he's like, if you tell anybody, I'll fucking kill you. That like we're doing this. They end up like doing building robots and stuff, and like start to bond a bit. And it's very like Mark is very unsure of how to feel with like this new relationship with Andy Mitchell, and it's pretty fucking nuts. Um, what ends up happening is when Courtney got hit by Saint Dane as Whitney Wilcox, she was able to pull out her phone and call Mark, but Mark was doing something with Andy and like didn't hear his phone because he never has his phone on him, and like he had been waiting to hear from Courtney forever, and all he gets is a voicemail from Courtney that says it's him, and like he knows what that means, and he can't say anything, and he like tries to get his parents to drive him up to where she lives because she's worried about her, and he doesn't want to say that she's been hit by a car, but like he's worried about her. He has a feeling, and they're unavailable, and so Andy is actually, because Andy has a car, he's like, Andy, do you like? It's hard to explain, but would you mind driving with me? He's like, sure, dude, whatever, like, and so they drive up together up there, and are able to find Courtney on the side of the road, like in the bushes, bleeding out, dying, and that's why she's hospitalized. Um, so the hospital visit. The book ends with Courtney now in the hospital, having to like recover from all of this, realize that Saint Dane can be in multiple places at once, more or less, and like has fucked her over, and like she's gonna need it, like, you know, up Phil Mark in. Mark is gonna need to give her the journals that she's missed out on, and so she's gonna read all of this at once. Um, you know, she's really fucked up and probably not gonna survive. When everyone ends up, like, you know, as like she's just like alone in the hospital for a moment in her bed, and Andy Mitchell walks in and says, Chetwynd, you always were a pain in the ass, more or less, and says some stuff that's very similar to what Whitney says. Um, and the thing is that Courtney is unconscious at this point. She's like, the meds have kicked in and she's unconscious. And so this is just like, we're like a third person omniscient hanging outside of here as Andy walks in, talks some shit to her, and reveals that he's basically Saint Dane, and puts his hand on her chest and like fills her with like a healing shit, which is basically what Bobby did to Lore, and like heals her, and then suddenly like says something to like the nurses, and they're like, holy shit, we've never seen a recovery like this, oh my god, it's like a miracle. And Saint Dane just walks away as Andy Mitchell. And that's how we leave off this book, is that Saint Dane has made Courtney fall in love with him and then almost killed her, but also brought her back and made her survive just to prove he could, while at the same time becoming best friends with Mark now, or like becoming buddy with Mark and making him trust him. What could he have? What reason could he have to be interested in Mark? We'll get into that in the Quilling Games. Thank you for the hydrate. How are we doing, everybody? Let's, you know what? Let's do a call to action with a Hobie Ho. Let's go. Yeah. I told you guys these books slap, but it takes a while. It takes a hot minute. Yes. Do we have any questions so far about what happened? Anything, like, any questions at all? I have no problem. I'd love to answer questions. No, like, if it's something that I'm going to answer later, I'll let you know that. I'm going to grab food real quick, just a second. I'm, like, it's in my kitchen. So if you do have a question, please ask. Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah, we hate him a lot. Why is everyone the villain? He's a shapeshifter, my guy. I don't know what to tell you, you know? Except, that's Saint Dane, baby. It's not fun. He's just the worst. Like, you are made to hate Saint Dane so much. But it's... Like, Katie can attest to this. Like, it is, honestly... It is a little simplistic in that, like, Saint Dane is evil. But Saint Dane... something I've been leaving out is that Saint Dane feels justified in everything he's doing. And that, like, to him, all of these territories are... It's all really just between him and Bobby. And him trying to convince Bobby. Because he is constantly offering Bobby to, like, come join him. Like, see things from my point of view. Like, humanity fucking sucks. Like, they'd do better if I like, took over. You know, and I did my thing. I'm gonna sit for this next part. Ooh. Only because, like, my fan doesn't reach, like, this, my desk fan broke and it doesn't charge anymore, and I just need to get another one. But yeah. So that was pretty fast. That was 30 minutes. We have Quillen Games. We have 4 more books to get through. And so hopefully they like honestly we'll probably get through Quillen Games pretty quick because although it's really fun, it's mostly just the games themselves and it's not really important to like the overall story. So we'll get into that. So the Quillen Games, this is my alternate book cover. The back of it says, "Let the games begin." The people of Quillen have lost control of their own future. Hosted by a strange pair of game masters, Vigo and LaBerge, the Quillen Games are a mix of sport and combat. To triumph in the games is to live the life of a king, to lose is to die. Bobby Pendragon realizes that he must beat Vigo and LaBerge at their own games, but the prize for winning the Quillen Games may be discovering the truth of what it really means to be a traveler. So, that's... Right. Lucy, I'll tell you if you just listen. What? Okay. Ah! So, there's nothing. There's nothing. So, Quillen Games. This is a doozy. So Quillen is a planet that, or is a like territory planet, whatever. That looks, it's very similar to Second Earth. But everything, it's like if Las Vegas was all of Earth. I don't know, Jackie. I believe Saint Dane, he gave himself that name. I don't know why his name is that. Unfortunately. But so Quillen is essentially a world where like everyone just plays games and they just bet on things, but everything is really gray. Like people aren't happy. Like people are watching these like weird games, death game stuff, or like competitive slot machines and shit. Hey, thank you so much for shorting that boiled potato man. Welcome to the motherfuckers. You one of us now. The people look sad and depressed, and they have these like wristband things. And it turns out that they're everything on Quillen is owned by Block, BLOK, which have through the power of capitalism undercut everybody and everything and have become everything. Everything is made by Block. Everything, like any place to work for, is owned by Block. Although there is like government, they answer to Block since Block controls the controls the economies of the entire world, like all the trade routes and shit. Like it is capitalism, like it is late stage capitalism to the extreme. Where someone just is like, well, we'll make it cheaper. We'll operate at a loss just to get everyone beholden to us. They don't give a shit. And it worked. The flume actually, when Bobby arrives at Quillen, is actually made of like it's in a Block warehouse. It's really cool. Yeah, Mega Monopoly, Ultimate Monopoly. The trying to see, yes, okay. I kind of did like touch points and then I went into it. So that like Block is the company that overall like runs everything and does everything. And the people are basically like there's like tar pits that people can work in if they're like if they run into too much debt, which is used to help fuel some stuff or whatever. But like literally everyone works for Block in some capacity, and it is a hellscape. People are just depressed. There is no culture. All of the art that's there is made by Block, and it's, you know, you have the same piece of art that everyone else in your city has. There's only one type of art. You know, there's art 1 or art 2. Those are your choices, and provided by Block. So like human creativity has kind of died, which is why Vigo and LaBerge have these massive games. These like incredible and crazy games that everyone can bet on and make money, and Block makes a lot of money from, whether you win or lose. And they're all really unique and crazy, and like how they come up with all these games. They are sometimes death games, and like a challenger, like they're typically colors, like challenger red, challenger green, challenger yellow. If there's a challenger, like that keeps winning, like currently challenger green is undefeated, and we actually meet challenger green. Oh yeah, I'll get into that. We get into them later. So I'll get into that. But yeah, Vigo and LaBerge. Vigo, I think, yeah, Vigo is the woman. She's like kind of like tall. She's a total fucking bitch. And I hate to say it like that, but like she is just cold, mean. Your stereotypical like what a boomer would say is like like a bossy pants lady, like like crisp suit, like crisp pinstripe suits, no laughter, no joy, very blunt and straightforward, and doesn't give a fuck about Bobby, doesn't give a fuck about the design of the games, only cares about making money. LaBerge is this like joyous, rotund individual who comes up with all these creative, crazy games, and like he doesn't care so much about the money or anything. He just likes making the games, and they live in this like insane like castle in the middle of the city. The police force in Quillen are Dados, Dado, and they are Zoops. Thank you. Dados are really they are basically like androids. Like they look human, but they're pretty robotic. Like they're like you can kind of tell. You could tell a Dado, because they're like, and they don't talk really, and or maybe I think they do talk, but like people just get out of their way. People are fucking terrified of these things, and Block owns the Dados, and so if you fail a bet, your wristband will turn red, and Dados will come to collect you because you bet on the wrong game. You bet on it the wrong way, and you're gonna go to the pits now if that's what your debt is gone to at this point. And like the Dados will fucking hunt people down, like if you're running from the police, and like people just stay out of the way and keep their heads down. Like no one wants to say anything. Total police state shit. Dados are terrifying. They're also a lot tougher than regular humans. They do carry like an electric baton that well like they use to like stun people so that they like stop. If you use a baton on a Dado, it tends to like knock them out or kill it entirely because it's like an EMP sort of, more or less. It's hard. It's not an EMP, but like electrical, shortage. Yeah. We meet the Traveler for Quillen, who is Neva Winter. Neva Winter is she is an assistant to one of the people on the board of directors for Block. After Bobby becomes Challenger Red, like Neva like comes to him and says, "Hey, like need your help, whatever. We're gonna deal with Mr. Pop and all this good shit, and it's wonderful. You will love Mr. Pop." And so she's pretty cool. She is also like a prim and proper like business lady, and she is wonderful. And Katie, if I were to ship anybody, and it's if things went a different way, who we would ship Neva with, because it honestly feels like they did have something at some point. And I'm not talking about Bobby. Ellie Winter, we meet towards the end of the book, but that is Neva's mother. Which is strange that Neva is the Traveler, but Ellie isn't. And that's just the way it is. Neva originally says that her parents are both dead, that like her dad died, and then her dad got sent to the tar pits and died, and her mom just like left and died. But turns out her mom's still alive. Challenger Red versus Challenger Green. Okay. Yeah, I think I was real quick on Quillen games because it's like I said, it's more of just the games themselves. So when we first get there, we realize like Bobby looks up and sees Challenger Yellow, a man named Ramudi, get killed by Challenger Green. Well, like he dies in the game of like this weird like floating disc thing, and they break shit and it falls. And if you fall to your death, like you die. Like that sucks for you. You should have survived. And he knows that it's a traveler because it shows his hand at one point, and he has a traveler ring at Challenger Yellow, and he watches the traveler from Quillen, the traveler from what he thinks is Quillen, die. Um, we later find out that Ramudi was the traveler from Ibarra, which we'll be going to in the next book. Um, Bobby gets recruited to become Challenger Red, as like is the only way that Neva can help or whatever. And he's against Challenger Green. They kind of like get drunk and rowdy every night, like partying because like there's no tomorrow because they could all die tomorrow. But the more you win, the more like luxurious your lifestyle. And Challenger Green gets really crazy. There's a lot of interesting things that Bobby starts to notice about these games. That like they're insane. They're like gonna kill him, and shit's really bad. It ultimately comes down to with the games themselves, and I'll touch back on them in a sec. Like some of the games are like riding Zenzens, which were like a six-legged zebra horse from Elong that I didn't talk about. But like we start to realize that like Vigo and LaBerge like aren't from Quillen. We find out they're actually from Velox. And I don't know if we find that out in this book or in a different book, but regardless, Vigo and LaBerge, we find out, are not from Quillen. They are from Velox, and that Saint Dane basically took them around, showed them all these different worlds, all the different territories, to inspire them for their games, to then like be here on on Quillen. The Challenger Red versus Challenger Green thing, we find out at the very end that Challenger Green was Saint Dane the whole time fighting him, and their final fight is in the same arena with like the thing that Ramudi died on, and ultimately Bobby wins. Bobby makes a very important speech because a side plot that was happening is that Bobby got chased by the police one time, and turns out he got rescued by a group of people called the Revivers, who answer to a Mr. Pop. A Mr. Pop, who is this mysterious person that no one's ever seen, but everyone's working for, and it's going to be the downfall of Block. It's these people are like resisting against the like normativity. It's raging against the machine. There's a few different people that like kind of help Bobby out, and like Neva has contact with them because they get in contact with Neva, who is a sympathizer for them, which is why we love Neva. She's wonderful. Mr. Pop is not Saint Dane. No. I knew I was gonna get you. So the Reviver's goal is to just do whatever they need to for Mr. Pop. As throughout the book, in like his experiences with seeing the people, seeing Quillen, seeing the disgusting nature of it all, Bobby is really like buying into and living and like falling like he believes in their cause, supporting Mr. Pop and like a revival like against Block. Block is shit. We need to do something. And they end up kind of, as with him as Challenger Red, there's this big X Games thing that's going on. And they want him to broadcast their message about Mr. Pop and whatnot, standing up to basically incite revolution. So right before their big fight, or no, I think right after he wins his fight against Challenger Green and he's crowned the winner of the X Games, whatever it's called, he does this insanely like motivational speech, like starting a revolution, literally. And with that, it's before that speech happens, Bobby gets taken to go meet Mr. Pop. And that's where it turns out that Mr. Pop is not a person, but rather is the last, like, enclave of items, artifacts, art, history, books, literature, anything and everything of culture of the people of Quillen is stored in this giant mega warehouse, way hidden away, and that like by doing so, like, cause like Neva goes with him, and they like he meets like a few different people. He meets this old lady that we later find out is Ellie. She introduces herself as Ellie. And Neva and Ellie do not talk to each other. They don't see each other, and like Bobby's like, that's really fucked. Um, but I'm not going to push the subject because Ellie felt it was better for Neva to be on her own. That is where we find out that Ellie was actually supposed to be the traveler from Quillen. But after the death of her husband and having to raise a daughter and be a traveler, she couldn't do it, so she just left and passed her stuff on to Neva. Um, which is pretty nuts. Yeah, kind of. It's hard to describe. I'm not doing this book justice, but Mr. Pop is essentially not a person. It's this last place because like Bobby goes there and like that's what makes him truly 100% believe in the revolution and go through with inciting the revolution. Is seeing Mr. Pop, seeing all this culture that Block has taken from everybody. Um, this is where the big betrayal happens, as it turns out Neva has been working for Saint Dane the entire time. Neva, at one point they go meet the board of directors, and like one of the board of directors is Saint Dane, and like does some more bullshit, theological shit with Bobby, and ultimately comes down to like Neva like basically betrays them. She did nothing wrong, but she did, yeah. And by Neva and him going to Mr. Pop, Saint Dane now knows, and Block now knows where Mr. Pop is. And so, although they started a revolution, that revolution is immediately squashed as they go to Mr. Pop and it's been torched. They like just released a bunch of dados with flamethrowers and just fucking torched it all. And we lose Quillen. The turning point has been lost. Because even worse than the people having no hope was giving them a small amount of hope and then it getting taken away. Anyway, we now have some fun stuff with Mark and Andy. Remember? R.I.P. No Pop. Andy and Mark, who Mark does not know that Andy is Saint Dane, are working on an interesting technology with like Mark has these like really interesting, like I believe it's like the computer chip stuff, and like essentially it's like a polymer thing. Like it's a forge a mechanized polymer capable of assuming geometric shapes on command. They basically by working together make something that like they could go like cube and it like turns itself into a cube, sphere and it turns itself into a sphere. And it's really fucking cool. And they actually like when their science, more or less like their science club, like it gets picked up and they get asked to go to Florida for a like for the event, essentially, um, and like to like go to this big convention to reveal it and everything, like to get awarded and stuff. And there's gonna be like money, and you know, Andy's parents aren't able to make it. Andy also works at his uncle's flower shop, which is a common thing that happens multiple times. Hey, Mims. Um, and uh, basically, what ends up happening is he like Mark's parents are gonna like take a flight to Florida when and like they were all supposed to go at the same time, like the four of them with Andy. And Andy ends up being like, "Hey, I'm really sorry, but there's like a massive emergency at my uncle's flower shop, and like I gotta take care of this, and I'm not gonna be able to make the trip at all because like this emergency is gonna take like 2 days." And Mark is like, "Well, if I was there to help you, like, do you think you could get it done tonight and we could just like fly out in the morning?" He's like, "Yeah, we totally could, but you don't have to do that, you know." And Mark is like, "Hey, mom and dad, can we reschedule, you know, our two flights for the morning? We'll meet you guys in the morning. I gotta, you know, help him so like Andy can come." And his parents are like, "Are you sure, Mark? You know, we don't mind waiting." He's like, "No, you guys go ahead, go get the hotel and everything. Don't lose money on that." And they're like, "Okay." So they get on a flight to Florida from, or you know, from New York, and Bobby or Mark ends up helping with the flower shop all night. Mark's parents never make it to Florida because the plane crashes over parts crashes like in the mountains or in the ocean, and like the plane just like fucking like gets destroyed. And so by by Mark not getting on the plane, he didn't die as well as his parents. But his parents, he told his parents to go anyway. Um, and Mark is distraught by this. He is fucking destroyed emotionally. And I believe at this point, like, um, Andy reveals himself as Saint Dane. Katie, correct me if I'm wrong. And Mark, like, racked with guilt, um, is like, I need to find a way to save my parents. Like, this is fucked up. And he ends up what does he do? He ends up going and like taking his forge technology, and he's like, this technology could have done something, it could have been better, and like, it could have done better with his parents. And he ends up disappearing by going to the flume and going to First Earth with Forge. Um, After this happened, Courtney, finally out of the hospital and whatnot, she ends up at like this like house where there's a flume near their house essentially. It's hard to describe. That showed up earlier in the books, and she's there, and she ends up like saying like second Earth. Like she goes through the flume, and the flume just like dumps her back where she was, and like she's like really weirded out because like nothing's changed. And she ends up like going home, and like we don't know that Mark went to First Earth just yet. I kind of got ahead of myself there. Courtney, we just know that his parents died and he's fucked up. Courtney ends up going back after recovering. She goes back to her house. Well, her dad picks her up, and she notices that like the seat feels weird in the Volvo that they're driving. And like she's like, Dad, is there something wrong with the seat? Did you get like a new car or something? He's like, Nope, same one we've always had. I don't know what you're talking about. And she's like, I definitely remember there being like a dent in the seat. Like, I could rock in it. Like I've always been able to do that. And she keeps it to herself. She's like really frustrated. She gets home, and she has a different cat that talks. And it turns out that it's got a little like nameplate on it, as well, like as the cat talks to her. She looks over at her computer, and it's this like futuristic computer that just reacts to her voice saying, Hey Courtney, this is your like computer brought to you by the Diamond Alpha Digital Organization. Which is where we realize that Mark went to the past with Forge and has now changed the future by bringing that technology to First Earth. That events that happen on First Earth directly affect Second Earth. Um, and so Bobby ends up showing up to Courtney, and like Courtney's like, shit's fucking crazy, shit's weird. Where the fuck is this? Why is this Diamond Alpha Digital Organization here? Like, where's Mark? What happened to him? So they decide to go to Third Earth. Is this where? Yeah, okay. So they end up deciding that like they need answers, so they're gonna go visit Patrick in Third Earth. Yeah, no, we're not gaslighting. Like they just straight up shit's just wrong. Like, no, when she went into the flume and immediately came back out, it dumped her in the updated version of Second Earth. She got patched in, more or less. I forget exactly how it happens. But yeah, shit's fucked. And so they decide to go visit Patrick Mack on Third Earth because they have that mega supercomputer to figure out what the fuck happened to Mark. Like what happened here. And that is where Quillen Games ends. How are we doing? Hobie ho! Do we have any questions? We have 3 more books to go. Mm-hmm. Yahoo! We love it in this house. Okay. Also, I'm not gonna lie, I hope this presentation part feels a lot better because, like, I fucking am, like, owning it. I'm doing it. We're doing great. And, it feels much more organized, and I feel like we're like, boom, 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 boom. It's a lot less me going, I'm very happy with myself. Hydrate, thank you. Any questions so far on anything? Did they smoke anything? No, just DJ McHale. Mm-hmm. Hey, B-Bear, how you doing? Quillen Games, baby. Thank you. All right, so with that, we head to the Pilgrims of Rain, which, Katie, you'll like this. The cover is a bee or a wasp. It's a wonderful reference. The quigs on Abara are these like angry wasps, which is pretty good. So, Pilgrims of Rain. Rain is the village on the island of Ibara. Ibara, it is a tropical island that people seem very relaxed. They're hanging out. They're dressed kind of modern, a little sussy. And they, oh yeah, there we go. They're dressed a little sussy, and they're just there's a lot of anachronisms, and I'll get to that again here in a bit. But like, it seems like they have like running water, they have electricity, but they live in huts. It's like a really weird, like, where's their technology here? But it's very idyllic and wonderful. Bobby shows up, gets hit by like the bees because like Neva says Ibara or Saint Dane. Typically, Saint Dane or Neva will say something, and that's how Bobby kind of knows where to go next. Um, and yeah, I don't have a good visual, unfortunately. Um, and yeah, we do meet the I didn't put it on here, but the traveler for here, his name is Siri, Siry. He is the son of Remudi, which Remudi was actually on the council of a council of three on Rain, or in Rain, and so like this is another sort of like Spader situation where Bobby's gonna need to like let him know that his dad's dead and that his dad was a traveler and that everything he said was true and that like he didn't just leave you, like your dad died a hero and like you're cool. Siri is part of a like rough and tough group of little shits that call themselves the Jackals. The only other person of note is that there is a very sweet, we love Telio so very, very much. There's a very sweet girl named Telio who is the daughter of one of the main council guy. And she's very sweet and she's very partial to the Jackals because like they go do like they have their own like secret hideout on the in the jungle on like in the island or in the forest, and like she like when Bobby like gets fucking destroyed by bees but survives because he's a traveler, she's the one that helps nurse him back to health and like prevents them from like arresting him and killing him. They end up heading to, so at the beginning of the book, Mark and Bobby head to Third Earth, or not Mark and Bobby, Courtney and Bobby head to Third Earth, which is different. Patrick meets them at the flume and is like, yo, shit's weird. I don't like it. It is very uncomfortable because now Third Earth is filled with dados, and all of the dados look identical, and they look incredibly human, and they act human. But it's like seeing like 50 copies of the same person. It is nuts. And the like, which is clearly like, what the fuck is Saint Dane been doing? Why are dados here on Third Earth? Dados don't belong on Third Earth. Dados belong on Quillen. They end up killing one at one point and sending it to Quillen because it's meant to be on Quillen. But these ones seem like a bit like different than the ones from Quillen. Like the Quillen ones are almost like a prototype. They end up going to Third Earth, and they realize that although there is a recorded disappearance of Mark's parents dying in the plane crash and him disappearing the next day, it also pulled up a second thing in 1937 where Mark appeared, filed a patent for a forge technology with like this other company in the UK, created the Diamond Alpha digital organization thing, and then like suddenly disappeared. He went overseas on this boat called the Queen Mary, went, signed papers, and then was like never seen again. But there also was a mysterious murder on board the Queen Mary on the way back, and it's like, what happened? They end up realizing that like although Bobby wants to go find Mark, he tells Courtney, You need to go to First Earth and find Mark and stop him from like giving Forge technology. Like find him, find Mark. Like shit's fucked. He's like, I have to go to Ibarra and like stops things. I have to. And unfortunately, they are split apart yet again. Lovers across time. Ibarra is filled with anachronisms. I already mentioned it with like they have technology, but then they live in huts, and it's like no one wears shoes, sort of a thing. Ooh, I don't know what I just did. Siri, our traveler, is just a pouty boy, just looking to explore. He's just a fun guy. They're always getting into trouble, but they're generally good natured. They feel like the leaders of Rain are lying to them and that they want to explore the world because they have a secret map. They have this faded old map because there are some like there's not really any books or anything. Sometimes there are, but it's all like stuff is specifically selected by the tribunal to be shared with everybody. And it's like they're hiding stuff, and this is something that I was able to find, and it's like a map that's all faded and shit, and like part of the words on the map say like Jackal, and so they're like, we named ourselves the Jackals after this, and there's this place called Rubity that we want to go to. And so they end up deciding to. They're like, one of these days we're just gonna fucking leave. They find out that there's like a secret harbor on the other side of the island, and on that secret harbor, there's like 10 boats. And they're like, what the fuck? Why are there boats? Why would they need boats if they're not gonna go anywhere, if there's nowhere else to go? We're going to Rubity, like, let's fucking go. And so the Jackals with Bobby, because essentially Bobby is left in Siri's care, more or less, and like to help them both not be in trouble with some shit. And Bobby kind of gets roped into helping them steal a ship and fucking leave. They leave Rain. They do get like attacked by pirates at one point, or flighters. Flighters will come and attack, which are these like they look like fucked up like dystopian wasteland homeless people, more or less, that don't try to fit in with society. They just like raiders, and they try to fight them off when like these cannons come out of the water and fucking destroy the shit out of their boats and stuff as their boat like ends up leaving. And it's very weird because it's like, why the fuck is there cannons in the water? What the fuck? Like, there's a lot of questions, but like at this point, they're on the adventure out of Rain, off of Ibarra, or on Ibarra. Ibarra is the name of the island, but like to whatever Rubity is, like based on their map. We find out that Rubity is Rubik City because we on Velox in the future, baby. Much like how there can be a first, second, and third Earth, Velox has two different turning points. One of which was Velox, which lost with Lifelight, and the other being on Ibarra, which is an island just off the coast of Rubik City. They end up heading to like they go into the city, and like they've already realized that they're way in over their head, and like Bobby starts to realize that there's all these like cities and stuff. He realizes a little too late that this is just Rubik City, like, and that he's on Velox again, and that shit's now starting to make sense. That's why there's anachronisms and stuff. And they, at one point, they're in this church. They get split up, and like flighters attack them. They get swarmed. A massive like stained glass thing breaks, kills one of their friends, Loke, and like they end up barely surviving, escaping, and like shit's just really fucked. And at this point, like they barely survive. They barely they try to like leave Rubik City, and the way that they do, because they discover that Saint Dane's there too. Bobby does, and like on their way out back towards the docks, they go under the docks. So they're like, we gotta try to steal a boat or something because flighters come on boats, and they find thousands of skimmers parked under this thing in the water. If you recall, skimmers are the really cool jet boat from Chloral, which you're not supposed to mix the territories, which means that Saint Dane clearly is getting ready to mobilize a shit ton of people, to mobilize all these flighters. The other thing that we find out before that happened is that Bobby realizes that this one building that he kind of had been avoiding, which is where he realizes he's on Velox, is the old Lifelight Pyramid. and like him, like he like to prove to Siri that like his father was real and everything, like goes to the Lifelight Pyramid, and like some of the power is still on, and that's when like Saint Dane shows up, talks shit, and then all of the Lifelight things open up, and we realize that a bunch of Dados have come out, the same Dados that were on Third Earth, um, and like Saint Dane has amassed an army of Dados that he plans on fucking via skimmer, sending them all to Ibarra and just wiping Ibarra off the map, killing all of those people. It's super fucked. Um, we do find out at this point, since Bobby's starting to make the connection, that the map must have said Aja Killian. Hence, and since those were faded, that's why they're the Jackals. And then the Flighters are after an bastardization of Lifelighters, the people who chose to stay in the Lifelight, and like and whatnot. And it's nuts. Oh yeah, this book, like Pilgrims of Rain, is a really good book. This is like a hefty boy. How many pages? It's like 550 pages almost. Yeah, 547. It's fucking, yeah, like shit goes fucking hard. They take skimmers back to Rain, which is a huge problem. Saint Dane's gonna march a Dado army on Ibarra to destroy it. And Bobby has also come to realize that like this battle's gonna have to end at some point. That like there aren't any more like we've been on all the territories, like shit's fucked, and like we need to stop Saint Dane here and now, and we need like Bobby's starting to think about how we can end the war. Um, we find out that the ship that they stole, um, was one of 10, because we find out that like in like since Aja knew that like Velox was lost, she ended up putting together this plan of like there's an old military base on Ibarra, hence the water cannons, that if we send people there with like literature and whatnot, they can like, you know, after a generation or two, purposefully not tell people about like Lifelight, and we can get society to start like becoming real again, and start repopulating the world and whatnot. And like once they get to a point, they will take everything they've learned and go sail and go find other cities to go start and live and fix, like learning to like grow their own food and all that stuff. So one of the ships that they stole that they ended up getting destroyed was one of the 10 pilgrim ships. So there's only 9 ships now, and they were actually planning on like getting them to leave. And Bobby thinks that the turning point is the pilgrims making it safely away from the island, because as like the attack is starting to come, like in just the nick of time, the pilgrim ships are able to leave, and it's like this beautiful thing with like the sunrise and everything as they're all leaving out. As or no, it's actually they do it at the dead of night. I think that's what it was. It was dead of night. They do that when suddenly thunderous sounds of cannons as all of like these ships appear out of the darkness of flighters and Saint Dane's army like ships just annihilate all of the pilgrim ships. Everyone fucking dies. All of the pilgrims are dead. There will be no, like, it will not leave Ibarra. They get fucking yeeted into oblivion. Yeah. Fucking funniest shit I've ever fucking seen. Let me tell you. I guess at this point, like, okay, so I got my timeline mixed up a little bit because I'm doing this in the presentation mode, so I can't see it both times. But essentially, you know, this is at the point where they go to meet Aja for the maps. For the maps of the place to help, like, okay, we need to fucking secure ourselves, because by using the flume, they could leave, be gone for a year, and come back in 1 minute has changed based on when the flume wants to bring them there. And Siri meets his hero, Aja. She's a real person. Bobby asks if Aja wants to come see Ibarra, but like Aja is filled with pride because she knows that her plan for Ibarra like will succeed, like it'll become a thing, and that like she knows that she doesn't live to go see it, and that is not her fate. She'll do everything she can. She'll give him whatever he needs, but she needs to go down with the ship on Velox. She needs to do everything she can to stop everything as much as she can. and it's this really, really like cool emotional moment where it's like every traveler proves their worth, and the only person they ever need to prove it to is themselves, and it's really great to see it. Um, so the big battle is happening, and Siri and like to help kind of show Siri some other worlds, because at this point they realize that with the defensive that Ibarra has, they stand no chance against thousands and thousands of this Dado army. Um, it is fucking insane. And so since Saint Dane has already brought skimmers, they realize that although mixing the territories is wrong, we will not win if we don't. So he ends up meeting up with Alder, and they first go to Zada and get themselves a Daigo. They then take the Daigo to Denduron, and they use the Daigo to get it to like break into the sealed tack mines and get some tack, because that's going to be the only way that they're going to win. We end up, we have the big climactic battle as the Dados storm the beach. Shit's fucking nuts. Like they're like killing them. They like tip the arrows in tack to blow like the, because like everybody on Ibarra is ready to fight. All the women and children are gone. Not women and children, but like the old people and children are gone. Everyone's like, we're ready to fight. You know, we don't care if we take losses. Like we need to defend this as much as we can. Shit's intense. It ultimately leads to like in a bunker, like Bobby has this, like he has to light the fuse for the tack himself, like shoot it. And essentially it like blows up and kills all of the Dados that are there. Because it was like 1,000 or 2,000 Dados. It was a large number, but like way outnumbered the people on Ibarra. Ultimately, they defeat the army, and Saint Dane loses because like Ibarra still stands. It's in ruin, but it can be rebuilt. After they win the battle, and it's like emotional, like Bobby almost dies, and it's kind of like implied that like Bobby's depressed and like lets himself die to like become a martyr, so that like since it's gonna be over here, it's over. And Siri rescues him at the last second, and Alder's like really upset with him because he's like, "You, like, I know what you're trying to do. You need to stop trying to get yourself killed." You know, that classic trope. And they end up like realizing, okay, we need to, because they take some like Dado killing weapons from Quillen and whatnot. And so he goes, "Hey, Alder, do you mind taking these back to Quillen, dropping those off, and then go home to Denduron? And then Siri, I need you to take the Daigo to Zada, and you know you're good to go." He's like, "Yeah, no problem." So Siri heads out. Alder is like looking at him before he goes, and he's like, "I'm gonna see you again, right, Pendragon?" And he's like, "Of course, I'll see you again soon." And they embrace in a hug, and it's this really tense, emotional scene because Alder knows that Bobby is lying to him. And as like Alder knows something's up, but he just doesn't know what. Alder goes and heads to he heads to Quillen, drops off the rods. He keeps one rod. He decides at the last second to keep one rod just in case. And he then goes, you know, Denduron. He goes to Denduron, and things are different. Time has passed, and like they're starting to open up tack mines. The tack mine is up and running again, and shit's pretty fucked. He is he runs back up the mountain to the flume, and he's like, "I gotta go tell Bobby," and he goes, "Ibarra," and nothing happens. He keeps shouting it over and over, "Ibarra, Ibarra." The flume doesn't respond. He goes, "Quillen," the flume opens. He chooses not to go in it. He goes, "Ibarra," it doesn't work. Because Bobby has used the last little ball attack to blow up and destroy the flume on Ibarra, effectively trapping him and Saint Dane on Ibarra. And with this, Bobby believes that it's Bobby is choosing to win. Like he's like, I can just end it here. Like if he tries to leave and unearth the flume, I'll find out about it and I can stop him again. But like at least if he's here, he's not fucking up anywhere else. And Bobby kind of checks out. It's implied that like him and Telio continue to get close, and he spends like a year there, 6 months or something like that. A large amount of time on Ibarra, like helping rebuild. He's become a leader. Him and Telio have gotten super super close. She's pushed for like romance and like letting him all the way in, and he just has still been hesitant. And then we finally get this scene at the very end where Saint Dane is a crow talking to, to who we find out is Telio, who's actually been Neverwinter this whole time. And they talked to themselves about how, he told Bobby from the get-go, Denduron will be the first domino to fall, because by Bobby unearthing the tack, it will cause Denduron to fall. And we are left in this state of fuck about it, because apparently the real Telio had died like 6 months before, like Neva killed her and took her place. And she's been manipulating him all throughout the book. And Bobby doesn't know that. And with this, that is the end of the Pilgrims of Rain, which brings us to the penultimate book of the Pendragon series, Raven Rise. How we doing, everybody? Hey, Ori. Thanks for the alert. Oh, thanks for the stretch. Oh, hell yeah. We'll stand for this next book. Ooh. Oh. No, yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm being a shit. Like, I will say, Neverwinter is one of my favorite characters from this series. And I love Neva. I love her as a character because she is shitty. And Katie knows why, and you guys will know why here soon enough. It sucks. She still did a lot of wrong. Just because a villain gets a redemption arc doesn't mean that their crimes are forgotten. And that's an unfortunate reality that we all have to accept in life. So, I'm gonna go take a little nibble. We're gonna jump into Raven Rise, and I'm gonna hit y'all with a call to action with a Hobie Ho. Let's go! If there are any questions, now's a good time to ask. I'll be right back. Like, if you're curious about anything, like, there's so much that I don't include because you'll have to read the books to find out how everything goes down. Okay. Ooh. Alrighty. So, Raven Rise is book 8. No, book 9 in the Pendragon Adventure. The symbol on this special cover is a star. It is the Star of Ravinia, and is the same star that's on the Gate of the Flumes. Now, one thing I haven't touched on is what abilities Saint Dane has. So Saint Dane has been known to be able to impersonate people. He can use the flumes, which implies that he's a traveler. He's like the rogue traveler is kind of what Uncle Press had described him, way back before he died. And we end up like kind of trying to figure out like, so he's able to transform into anybody and like disguise himself. He's able to turn himself into a bird. He's also able to turn himself into smoke. So he'll like sometimes turn himself into smoke. So like an attack could go through him essentially if he wanted it to, if he willed it. I mentioned before that he had long hair. And there was at one point in one of the previous books where when like he came out and his hair was on fire and it scorched his head, which made it so that he's basically been bald and he's got a fucked up scarred head. These like angry scars. And I believe the reason why he's scarred is it's because it's damage that Bobby did to him specifically. I think it was after the lore fight. Um, and like he no longer like he has effectively maimed Saint Dane with his hair. And so Saint Dane's always described at this point on with like he has been for a couple books now as like bald with scars that like are fucked up and angry. And it looks super evil and is cool and good. Yeah, he really is. Well, and he's been super cocky and confident, and him and Bobby are always playing this this like back and forth game. It's like this like oh Suki, I got you. You tried to make the jump, and your little paws held on as much as you could. Please stop. This is my new jacket. Thank you. Okay. Cry bitch, exactly. So, Raven Rise. Raven Rise is one hell of a fucking jump. One hell of a book. This is probably my favorite book because it's fucked. It's really hard not to say that the 10th book is the best book because it's the one where you get answers. It's the one where you find out everything, and it is hands down the best book. But we do our best, right? Did I include? Yes. Okay. There we go. Hell yeah. Yeah. No. You are not left with any questions, in my opinion. Katie, you can add commentary on that if you'd like. I felt like the book series wraps itself up really nicely. And it out Zuki, it's chill, dude. So it is a book that like there's also like he came out with 3 other books that are like before the war, like before they were travelers, and it's like each of the other 9 travelers get their own little like spin-off thing, which is kind of cool, but I don't care. Raven Rise. It takes place on Second Earth and on Third Earth. We meet a new traveler named Alexander Namir. Alexander Namir. We'll probably get into him a little bit more. I'll come back to explain him. If I don't, please, Katie, remind me to explain him. But Alexander Namir is a new traveler, and he is the traveler from Second Earth. Let that sink in. And he is, and was always meant to be, the traveler from Second Earth. Alder is lost without Bobby. As we open up on Denduron and we get this point of view sort of thing from Alder as he sees that like by unearthing the tack, it has like renewed the vigor of like Relin, who was the chief miner, who's now like a war chief. He's been married to Queen Kagan from before, and like, you know, with their tack, they realize that they have power. And like they're preparing for war with a neighboring tribe called the Losi, because like the Losi have something that they want, and they normally would trade the glaze for it, but they're like, fuck it, why would we take the glaze for it? We don't want to go get the glaze. How about we just fucking like go kill the shit out of them, enslave them, and make them mine it for us, like the stuff for their like electricity lighting shit. And it's bad. It's really bad. Alder is not sure what to do, and is he ends up getting himself arrested and put in jail basically because he's trying to stop them from launching their war. Shit's fucked. Patrick is lost without Bobby as he wakes up he's already woken up once, and suddenly all these dados were there, and now he wakes up again, and Third Earth is like a wasteland. It is a shithole. It went from being the squeaky clean place of the future to a desolated I think Fallout, like a Fallout world, and he is like shaking, like he is broken, a nervous wreck down to his core. He like he ends up he like tries to go to the library where he works, and like it's like there's smog, he like everything is run down and shitty, brick walls, and like nothing's taken care of, and like he gets to the like library, and all that's there is this old librarian, and it's got still got real books but barely any, and like shit's getting like torn up, and the guy ends up having like a secret book which is like it has the Ravinian symbol on it, which is essentially the Bible of Ravinia, more or less. As these people show up with the Flume Star tattooed on their arm and like beat the shit out of the old man and Patrick hides. As somehow the symbol of the Flumes is now made a cult called Ravinia. What the fuck? And Ravinia is on Third Earth. Bobby's on vacation. He's pretty checked out since he won. You know, he trapped the guy on trapped Saint Dane there, and he's having a wonderful time. I guess I got ahead of myself because it happens in this book, but Neva reveals herself as Telio to Bobby at one point and says, like, you know, Denderon's fucked, you fucked up, you're a loser. We're also seeing the smallest, tiniest of hints that that like Neva may not entirely believe everything Saint Dane says. She always reaffirms her belief, but like for a moment there's a little bit of doubt. One thing that I didn't mention back in the end of Quillen Games is that there was an old lady who was like helping clean Mr. Pop, and that was Ellie. At the very end, when Ellie, like when Neva reveals that she's actually working with Saint Dane, Ellie is there, and she basically tells her mother to like fuck off. Her mom's the only thing that makes her like stop, and she reaffirms her belief that she's with Saint Dane and is like, you're no longer the Traveler, like, you know, fuck you. So they have seen each other once. She mentions Denderon. Turns out Saint Dane has been making all the flighters go to work at pulling rock, and the way that Bobby finds this out is that I mentioned that when the stained glass ship broke on Ibarra, one of their friends, Loke, died. It was a really, like, I just threw the comment away. But Loke ended up surviving somehow, and he was stuck forcing to, like, mine rock and make this, like, tunnel thing, which Bobby recognizes as Saint Dane's building a new flume, that he's stuck here too. He's not. But that's... Well, maybe he is. I forget why he's building a new flume. I think he does it to entice Bobby. I think it's all on purpose. Essentially, he ends up heading over there. He ends up going to the place again, and since he's the only traveler there, and he realizes that the fight's not over. He goes to where the thing is, barely makes it alive, heads to the flume to Denderon, almost dies by a quig, and is like fucking bleeding out. Realizes that like they're literally about to go march on the Lousy tribe or whatever. Decides to find the jail that like cell that Alder's in, breaks him out, and Alder heals him with the traveler magic. You know, good shit. Mark and Courtney during this book are Gunny has an acolyte named Dodger, who's like a really fun guy that was way back in the Never War in the 1930s, and Dodger knows everything about what's going on with Saint Dane because like the other travelers also write journals to their acolytes, and he ends up joining Courtney on the Queen Mary to go find Mark, and they ultimately do find Mark on the Queen Mary because it's registered. It says that he has a room. He has 2 rooms, and that he's staying with somebody. And it's like, what? Who is he with? And when they eventually do find Mark, he's a few years older, and he's a little bit more like in shape. And they see his parents also sitting at the dinner table with him as Neva Winter sits down with the four of them. And Courtney is like, what the fuck? What the fuck is happening? What the fuck is happening? Because as it comes to find out, um, when Saint Dane had his parents killed, because Saint Dane orchestrated the plane crash, like that was the intention, to get like to kill Mark's parents, to break him, to make him come to Third Earth to bring the Forge technology there, um, and the Neva was like part of that, and so him and Neva have started to get close, and that's my one true pairing. Like I think that in another world, Mark and Neva could have been a couple, because like she really does kind of have feelings for him, and ultimately they make it to the UK, and the other company is like, it's too late, the papers have already been signed and everything, like we have the schematics for it, like because they're like, well, we're just not going to give you the actual like piece of forge that I have. And he's like, you don't have to, you've already given us the schematics were already sent by the Diamond Digital or Diamond Alpha Digital organization company. So yeah, Denny, I do. I mean, am I wrong, Katie? Am I wrong? Is it there is something there? There is something there. It's mentioned a bit. I would love for them to be in a world where Neva had her mother. Like she could have been with Mark, and whatever. Ultimately, they fail because they have the schematics and they realize shit's fucked, and they're like, well, all we can do is just go back home, and they decide to go there. Yes, exactly. It's my one true pairing that will never happen. Exactly. Thank you. Um, at one point, Neva ends up blackmailing Mark for his traveler ring. She goes to him and says, like, I have you have your parents here with you now, and I will kill your parents. I will actually you thought they were dead. I would brought them, brought you here, and you found them here because I brought them here for you because I didn't want them to die. But I will kill them unless you give me your traveler ring. Because Bobby's given up. Bobby's checked out. He has no need for his. Because Bobby at one point lost his traveler ring too. I think is part of it. I'm almost certain that he lost it at one point, and which is implied that Telio picked it up. Neva, and like Neva ultimately, like Mark ends up deciding that you know the lives of his parents are too important. He can't lose them again, and he decides in a moment of weakness to give Neva the ring. An important thing to note is that Neva seems disappointed that Mark, like only for a moment, seems disappointed that Mark decided to give the ring up. Yeah. Yeah, I had a fucking feeling more like, yeah. Um they end up like getting back, and yeah, Mark loses his ring. Mark and Courtney and Patrick end up teaming up because like they kind of like try to go to the future or go to Second Earth. Patrick meets up with them and is like, shit's crazy, I don't have my supercomputer. Like there's something called Ravinia. These cultists are just running everything. Shit's terrible. Thank you, Mint. And shit's bad. They end up to heading to Second Earth where there's a new cult in town called Ravinia. Um, so Alexander Namir was a boy. In 1937, he was a young boy who was very sick and orphaned. And one day, like he was terribly sick. They couldn't really figure out what it was, and it seemed like he was going to die. When one day a miracle happened outside of his window, he swears that a small raven came to him and gave him this ring, and suddenly after holding the ring, he like started feeling better and he could like walk again and stuff, and like there like was a miraculous recovery, very similar to how everyone else who's a traveler or interacted with a traveler has been healed. How sussy. Also curious, guess whose ring Namir has? Ding ding ding, it's Mark's. Like all this because the time shit's fucked. It stuff happens at the same time. Um, because of that, he was able to have the ring and was given like shown visions of the flume, the material, finds out that it's made of dark matter, and he like is looking for the world's elite, and like showing people the flumes, and he'll like take like the world's elite to like go on like a fun trip to Ibarra, or like a fun trip to Velox or whatever, like to see Lifelight in its prime, and like see all these like amazing excursions. I can show you these worlds of Hala, the universe. We're not alone in the universe. And he's able to prove it, which is fucking people up. The goal of Ravinia is to reward the people who contribute to society while punishing those who do not. Their thing is that like the elite of the elite deserve to be the elite, and people who are not elite, who are not hard workers, who are not cutting edge, are going to be marginalized. Because at this point, Alexander Namir is a pretty old guy, and people are like, "What do you mean marginalized?" And he's like, "Yeah, you know, they'll be going to like a Horizon compound, if that ends up being the case, and you know, where they can do like labor and stuff, because we still need people to do things for society to run. But like, society will be so much better because we'll have all the greatest minds in one place." And yeah, capitalism. Um, Namir is actually he's become this massive figure. And like at one point Bobby shows up to it for all of this, and them figuring it out. And the like there's at one point like in a showing in a small compound. Hey Careless, have a good night. No worries. In a small compound, Mark, Bobby, and Courtney show up, and like it turns out there's like all these seats, and there's a flume. It's the flume in the basement of the Sherman house, I think. And like because there's like guns and shit, and like he's showing these people there, and he's like, "Oh, we have some people that we're gonna marginalize," and he just sends these people through the flume to kill them. Like they're just gone. As almost as a show of force of like, I am a threat to be like fucked with. Like I'll just send you to fucking oblivion, no problem. Um, in a chaotic moment, Bobby is upstairs behind glass, and because like they're considered, Bobby is a special guest of Namir, and but Mark and Courtney end up accidentally getting pushed, funneled into this flume that swallows like 30 people, and they're just gone from existence. And Bobby's just like, what the fuck? He just killed them, like because he didn't say a place or anything. Like what the fuck, like. And so Mark and Courtney are dead. They have died at this point. Their bodies are gone, lost to the cosmos of Hala. And Bobby is filled with rage. I don't remember if Alder. I think Alder is still with him at this point. They've just been boys. They've been their bros, and like they are like fucking brutal. There's going to be a vote because Ravinia has become so influential that there is going to be a United Nations vote like the next day or the day after, in 2 days, to make Ravinia the spiritual advisor to the United Nations and the world, like basically the world religion, and make them super mega influential. And there's this professor who's been like leading these protests, like, dude, fuck Ravinia, this is really fucked up, you can't treat people like this is just like capitalistic elitism, like it's fucked up. And he ends up being like, yeah, like I was able to organize a massive protest. And like Namir ends up saying like, you know, I invite, you know, I want to hear, I'm open to people's like, you know, discourse and whatnot. I would like to invite everybody who, you know, is not or you know, who's not here to come to like, I think it's the Reds, like it's the Yankee Stadium or whatever. Um and like, you know, come here and, you know, do your protest, and I will hear you out, and I will talk to you all masses and try to see if we can come to a discourse. It's a massive protest. Um while Mark, Patrick, and Courtney were like looking around for information, especially in the future, the only bit of information they were able to find from that old guy was a book that mentioned something about the Bronx Massacre that happened at the year that we're currently in. Hey, no worries, Snake. Have a good night. About the Bronx Massacre. It's at this point that Bobby realizes that the like 20 or so people that died that like through the flume in the basement where Mark and Courtney were there, like that has to be because they're like, we're looking for the Bronx Massacre. That was the Bronx Massacre. Like he lost his best friend. He lost both of his best friends. One of them being his love interest. Your choice, who it was. It was Courtney. Sorry, guys. He's a white boy who plays basketball from Connecticut. He's straight. I'm sorry, DJ McHale. This was written in 2002 to 2009. It wasn't progressive yet. And like that was the Bronx Massacre. We didn't stop it. Shit's still fucked. But like we need to do something to stop Namir. Like we gotta find a way to stop this vote from happening. And like Bobby and like so that's why they go reach out to this professor guy and they go find him and the guy they just tell him straight up what's happening because like people know that there's other worlds that Hala's a thing that like because like the other big thing is that Bobby has been told like to not tell people that Hala like the universe like you're not that's why you're not supposed to mix worlds and the other thing is that it's been mentioned by Namir's propaganda as well as Saint Dane multiple times that the convergence is almost here. The convergence is upon us. The convergence. And it starts to realize that like Saint Dane intends to mix the territories, to mix the worlds, to converge them into one super territory, more or less. As sort of the concept. And so they end up going to like the Yankee Stadium and it is fucking packed with like 80,000 people. Like or yeah, like whatever it was. I think it's like 80,000 people. And it's packed and they end up like Bobby ends up getting picked up and is in a helicopter at one point as it like is revealed that like I don't know if like Namir invited them to go there. I think he did, but people were like, we're doing this big protest here. He shows up as like there's like Ravinia like cult guards like outside the stadium to help people get in for like the protest shit. And like Namir's in the helicopter are talking and like basically like I hear you, but unfortunately you all need to be marginalized because none of you are the elite. And I'm sorry to tell you this, but you know, I wish you all only the best. As the entire stadium starts to glow bright and we hear the music as we realize that the Bronx Massacre was not what happened in the basement, but that the stadium has been turned into a giant flume from the bottom. As live on television, he activates this flume with his ring, Namir, and all of these people just die. They just get yeeted into oblivion. And in this insane moment of like realizing that like Bobby has lost Second Earth, Bobby has lost Third Earth, Bobby has lost First Earth, like everything's fucked, like all of these people just died, what the fuck? And like he like in this like sheer amount of anger decides to he's holding like Namir fell out of the helicopter that him and Bobby were in, and like Bobby's holding him and he decides to let go. And him in his anger and vitriol letting Namir go is what causes Saint Dane to win. That was the one and final test. Was Bobby able to prove humanity was good by saving his worst enemy in that regard? And Namir falls to his death through the flume. And Saint Dane appears saying like, "You fucking lost. You suck ass." As this happens with this massive flume going, Bobby ends up like losing his shit too, and jumps out of the helicopter as well, realizing that he lost and he fucked. He's fucked. There's nothing more he can do. He goes into the flumes. As he's going through the flumes, all of the flumes, because he realizes that one thing I didn't mention, when you went through the flumes, you could see all the stars, and you could see maybe every once in a while a little image of something like, oh, those are like the Zens from Elong. And as stuff's been mixed and the series has gone on, every time they go through the flumes, shit's more jumbled. Until even in this book, when they've been in the flumes, there's so much shit you can't see anything. You can't see any stars. And Bobby sees, as he's floating almost outside of the flumes, he sees all these long tunnels through space to these like planets essentially. Like time is space is distorted, and like they're all blowing up, and all of the flumes have been destroyed. They're all disconnected as now the convergence has happened. Um, People are gone. Bobby has lost. They have lost. Until Bobby shows up in this dusty, rocky landscape. He's not dead. And Uncle Press walks up to him and says, "It's really me, Bobby. And I told you, we're not going to be able to win, and until Saint Dane thinks he's won." And the book ends as Uncle Press is alive, and we don't know where they're at. Ain't that some shit? Let's go. Yeah. Because a very common theme through this that like Uncle Press had used to say was that like, you know, we can't beat Saint Dane until he thinks he's won. And at this point, they like the travelers are at their lowest point. Saint Dane has won. He got his conversions. He has Ravinia. Ravinia is spreading to the other territories. His influence. Dendurin fell, and that was all he needed. And he had Bobby do it for him, proving that humanity is shit. Do you guys want to know what the travelers are? What Saint Dane is? How any of this shit happens? If you guys want to know, then we got a hobie ho, let's go, because it's time for the Soldiers of Hala. The questions. Or Loop, you mean to tell me that the final test after everything this fucking kid has been through, they were like, cool, now we need to prove that need you to prove that humanity is worthy, which is what every test has always been. Through the lens of looking at a single traumatized child, and then child set doesn't save the yep. Uh-huh. God. And I'm gonna be honest. There's so much more in that book that is worth reading. All of these books are, in my opinion, are worth reading if you can get them from like your library or whatever. I forget how much my books were. They were kind of expensive, like because it's like a box set, and you're buying 10 books, so like, it's a lot. But they're cool. They're really cool. It's a story that I feel like is awesome. It is an actually like good story of just like it's fun and like at this point that we're in Soldiers of Hala, which looks like this. Bobby's writing in his journals because he's still writing journals, even though he doesn't know who will end up reading them half the time. You can tell his maturity in the way he writes, where there's still a little bit of that Bobby from Stony Brook in them, but like in the because there was if some people may remember this, but I read the first chapter of Merchant of Death on stream one time, and everyone's like, "What the fuck? This is just like a 14-year-old like horny kid talking about the girl in his class that he kissed." Like, and it's like, yeah, because he's like 14 and like that's all he knows. But he grows up through the books and the writing style changes, which is really good. You speed ran the last 3 books. It's hard not to. It's hard not to put them down. The Soldiers of Hala. At this point, I would just like to thank everybody for coming and hanging out with me on stream. I know this is not like I know this is technically part 2 to the Pendragon lecture, and this one's far better than the first half. But this has been a really fun time, and this has been quite wonderful. I'm very happy, and I'm glad I get to share this series with you guys. So, Soldiers of Hala, where our answers will get questions. No, questions will get answers. The Soldiers of Hala takes place mainly on Third Earth and Elon, in a way, and it's a pretty good time. We learn about Solara, baby. That's a word you haven't heard, but we'll get to that. And the last little bit is humiliation is my kink. Those 3 things, I'll ask Katie. Katie, do those 3 things explain the entirety of this book if you were to really just simmer it down or boil it down? Because I feel like that's the case. I'll take a bite. But that's basically it. There it is. There's Soldiers of Hala. There's all your answers. Hobie ho! Let's go! Hell yeah. Thank you for the hydrate. Alrighty. Let's bring this bitch home. The warp stream? Okay. I always imagine it's hard to describe. Like I imagine like kind of like slate like slightly not that opaque, slightly transparent like gray rocks and then like magical space color. I don't know. All right. Let me sit for this. I'm getting a little heated. This book is fucking amazing. This is where the first part of the book immediately gets into answers. Something that I didn't mention from the end of the last book, I believe. Let me double check. So, so as Bobby appeared in this area, one thing he saw Uncle Press, and then the book ended. But what I didn't mention was that he talks to Bobby, and all of a sudden, like he ends up seeing Aja Killian there. He ends up seeing Alder there. He ends up seeing Ellie Winter. He ends up seeing Siri Ramudi, which Ramudi's the last name. He sees Siri, who is pissed. He sees Patrick. Oh, Patrick died in the last book. There was a point where Patrick died, and he got important information about the Bronx Massacre to Mark and Courtney. And he couldn't be saved because Alder and whatever. But anyway, all the travelers are alive again. At the start, he also sees Kasha, who's alive, and they're all talking. Gunny is there, and Gunny has both of his hands. He also sees Spader, who he hasn't seen since Elong, and it's a wonderful time. So he ends up seeing all of the travelers, including Lore. And like Lore's the first thing that Lore says is like, "Why didn't you come for me, you bitch?" And he's like, "I wanted to protect you." And he's like, "Bullshit." She's like, "I protect you, you dumbass." And a really good time. And they have this. I'm just gonna read this because it's important. As they all like get in a circle, they're like, he's like, "We've lost. The fate of Apollo is in our hands, all of our hands. Yet this is where we find ourselves, beaten, alone, and outcast. You know, none of you asked for this responsibility. None of you know why you were chosen. Why you are travelers. There was a reason for that. It's time you knew." This is Uncle Press speaking to them. They realize that they're out of place. He's like, "Bobby, I told you a long time ago this would not end until Saint Dane thinks he's won. Do you remember?" And he's like, "Do you think he's won?" It's like, "Yeah. This is not the way things were meant to be." He yells at Bobby, he calls him Pendragon. He's like, "You've made mistakes, we've all made mistakes. Are you able to see past them, or will it end here?" He ends up looking to everybody. We get this really cool moment where he lost, and he goes, you know, like Aja like calls in a promise about getting a crack at Saint Dane, and they say they gotta do something. And Bobby ends up doing like a little thing. They start to make plans, and then he says, "And so we go," and that's where we leave off. "And so we go" is a common thing that Bobby starts saying, where it's like, we got to keep moving on. You know, we got to keep working towards our goal. Okay. The Rocky World area, Dusty World that they're all in, they realize, is actually the New York City Zoo on Third Earth that has been like a dust bowl, as they are attacked by helicopters armed with missiles and explosives. They end up like they try helping out because they see like some people going into this building. There's like this really buff rip dude with like long hair who's like helping like open the door and like staying way too late outside because like he's gonna get hit by these fucking like machine gun turrets and shit from the helicopters as he's like helping people get in, and he's like badass barely makes it in, and shit's really fucked. And ultimately, um like the dust settles, they hide. He doesn't go meet up with them or anything. Like he tried to, but like the travelers all had to stick together. And after like the helicopters leave, Uncle Press is talking to Bobby as we start to see Kasha's father show up. All everyone's parents or the traveler before them suddenly appear and start talking to everyone else. And Bobby says it's time, or Uncle Press says it's time for you to go home and to give you the answers you need. He's like, we're gonna go travel to Solera, which is where you're from. You are a spirit from Solara. I was like, what? He's like, how are we gonna get there? He's like, we're already there. And Bobby realizes as he's been walking, he's already now at this new place that in my head always kind of looks like the moon, kind of, and like there's like it's like a small amount of like nice like grassy meadow-ish but like mostly rocky, but you could tell like way off in the distance like there's rolling thunder and like this starry sky. Like they're in a place that doesn't exist. This is just the physical manifestation of Solara. um where turns out that the travelers, including Saint Dane, are all spirits of Hala, and the spirits all live on Solara. um all of their spirits were chosen to be travelers to stop Saint Dane by the other spirits of Solara, and they chose their bravest soldier or their bravest soul to be Bobby Pendragon. And like, cause like when he gets there, like when he gets to Solara, he's greeted by Marley, his dog, and then Shannon, his sister, and his parents show up, and he gets to have a moment with his family that he's lost since the very first book. And you know they're like, you know, we'll see you again. We've been watching you this entire time. We've seen everything. We've seen every success, every failure. We've been with you every step of the way. We love you, and we're so proud of you. You know, you could never do anything to disappoint us. And it's so fucking heartwarming and heartbreaking at the same time because he's like, they're like, you know, we need to leave now. You need to talk with press, but you know, there isn't, you know, we'll see you again. And it turns out that the reason why the flume, so Saint Dane created all of the flumes and for part of his conversions. Saint Dane was also a spirit of Solara and had been planning on, like, had felt like letting humanity do their own thing because essentially Solara is heaven, for lack of a better term. Um, it's where all spirits go to, and like they will be there forever. You know, like if anything, like going to Solara is like the beginning of forever. So you know, there's literally you're only gonna gain things. You'll gain more memories. Sort of reincarnation esque is kind of like hinted at. Um, and like the longer that they stay, more stuff would appear, but there's no need for that. But that's the big thing is that they are not like he is not actually Bobby Pendragon, but the reason why they never told them is that they needed all of the travelers to believe that they were the people they were, to be one of the people from those territories. Because it turns out that all of the work St. Dane has done has been snuffing out the power of Solara, which helps keep things in the universe going. And that he's basically been siphoning all of this energy and making a dark Solara that he uses to fuel his power, which is why he's like Saint Dane has continued to get more powerful. It's because he's been siphoning all this power from them. That being said, in order for the travelers to do things like healing people from the dead, turning into like doing anything, that is sapping and using the power of Solara. And Solara is powered by the will and determination of human spirits, and Klee spirits. By that, by you know, by intelligent life's spirit and like will. Since Saint Dane has basically gone and made all these people who are alive beaten down, they have no will, no hope, no spirit. Solara is dying. Solara is dead. And they end up coming up with a plan where they they're like, we need to find, like, it turns out that the there's a small amount of Solar that's left is due to one thing, and it's one thing that Saint Dane fucked up on. The big flume in the Bronx massacre did not kill all those people. It sent them somewhere, and they need to figure out where they fucking went. And so a large chunk of the book is them trying to figure out where the 80,000 like exiles are. Everyone decides to go back to their home planet, like their home territory, to go look for them. And then, like, because they turns out now they never needed the flumes to travel. All they need to do is think about where they want to go and take a step forward, and they'll be there. But understand that by doing that, you are using the power of Solera. But like at this point, they realize that what we need to do is get more information. So Bobby ends up going to Third Earth with Patrick, because like there's no need, like Second Earth is already gone, and we don't know what happens after that. And First Earth is also fucked by that same regard, since it didn't happen yet. So Gunny goes back to I believe Gunny actually goes to Blackwater on Elong because he's been working, or no, he doesn't. I don't remember. They're all like, people are together. There's a lot of traveling in this book. It's really hard to remember. But ultimately, Bobby goes back to Third Earth to try to find about any exiles there and figure out what's happened. And hey, what's up? Hell yeah, Steph. Ends up realizing that those like resistance fighters, like those people that he saw, on like that, like were helping people in the building. That big buff dude is Mark Diamond. And it turns out that when Mark got sent into the flume, he doesn't know where Courtney went, but him and like him and a few other people got dumped to Third Earth, and they've been like trying to just be a thorn in Ravinia's side. As it turns out that like the conclave of Ravinia is this massive stoned like circular arena thing, like place that's just in the middle of New York City, and like everyone else is forced to live in a Horizon compound, which is like slums and ghettos and like, the worst exploitation things. And that like, the Ravinians run and control everything. They've stolen helicopters and shit. They be a thorn in themselves. And Mark's just a badass at this point. They have cab drivers and shit. It's a really cool time. And they end up like just trying to like go all over the place. They're trying to figure out where the fuck they could be. There were some people that Mark ended up becoming a leader because he felt guilty, as well as he already knew what was going on. And he ends up like some people went to Chloral, and so they don't really find anybody there. Everyone got killed by the Quigs on Chloral. Or they went back in, and they're just trying to go around and find shit. They at one point, they like Bobby and Mark sneak into the conclave, and the first thing they see is the statue of David, and then they see the actual Eiffel Tower, and they realize that Saint Dane has taken all of the most famous artworks from the 20th century and brought them here in this perfectly manicured, I want to say Euphoria, but that's not the name of it. What is the name of in BioShock Infinite? Columbia. Imagine kind of like Columbia, where it's all like, pristine and everything, but like no new art is created. It's just the best art from that time, and nothing, because with struggle, with strife, with emotions comes art and stuff. And I didn't mention this, and I realize I need to. We need to go back, because I have not addressed it and I haven't seen anyone guess it in chat. But I mentioned previously in the Quillen games that like they were dados, and that Mark ends up making this forge technology and goes back to the past, creating the Diamond Alpha Digital Organization. What do the first letters of those spell? Dado. Inadvertently, Mark created the Dados. Hey, have a good night, Drakenna. So, when I mentioned on Third Earth that they all looked the same, it's around this point, or in the last book, they realize, I think it's this book, they realize that all of the Dados look like Mark. And that's why it's terrifying. It's like seeing a million Marks. And so the Dados are named after Mark as a, Diamond Alpha digital organization, Dado robot. I don't know if people picked that up or not, but that is what happened. I never like addressed that, but I kind of realize it now that I'm like, oh, I should have said that. Yeah. So yeah, that's exactly it. It's one of those where like if you're like the reveal of that, it's like, okay, yeah, like he made a company, but like you don't really think about it till a little bit later. They end up finding Neverwinter. They like go do some shit with Ellie. Ellie and Bobby end up getting like busted. They find out that there's this massive facility where they're building dados, and we're talking like hundreds of thousands of dados, including Klee dados. And they find like the big centerpiece of the conclave, which is where Saint Dane is living on Third Earth, is the Taj Mahal that got moved there. And they end up finding like they get like busted, and it's decided that Saint Dane's like, I'm going to have your friend Mark executed publicly for being a traitor and a piece of shit. And Bobby is forced to stay in a jail cell, and they end up like Bobby turns himself into smoke to get past the door and knock out the two Dado guards, and Ellie just like hangs out there, staying in there to help kind of like prevent things from being bad. And essentially like they are working with Neva. Like Neva's there, and like Neva, like Bobby talks to Neva and is like, did you really think that like this is good? Like, you agree that this is the best? And she's like, yes, I've never been so scared. And she's like, and you're aware of all of the dados that are being built? Like, what else is he gonna do? And she's like, what do you mean the dado facility? And it's like she didn't know. Because it turns out that Saint Dane also lied to her. She thought that once they did the flume in Second Earth, that like they were done, and like that's it. Like now it's just helping the people. But Saint Dane is a bitch. Also, when they see him in the Taj Mahal on Third Earth, his hair is back and he's wearing princely gaudy robes, and like he is the leader of Ravinia. Like he never wanted to have a better humanity. He just wanted everybody to worship his ass. And like it is the most smug shit. And it's like you don't even believe in your own cause. Because even Uncle Press is like, I do believe that in the beginning, Saint Dane like really believed in what he wanted to do. That like it wasn't the right way to do it, but like like he did think like it's that whole thing of like, do we let people make their own decisions? And yes, there will be bad things and good things, but like that's just it's free will versus like the absence of free will, which is a really interesting kind of like concept. And but it's to the point his ego started to take over. And hey Kenny, he ends up publicly says that like this guy tried to like take what you guys wanted, and like to all the Ravinians and all like the people that live there, they all fear the Dados, but like because like the Dados have a gun that like a baton that like they touch somebody who like was running from them, and he just gets dusted into ash. But Mark is like, dude, every one of us, the 18, 20 of us that are here, we're ready to die if we need to. No worries. All the homies hate Saint Dane. Neva ends up like with Ellie there. Ellie shows up and they kind of talk for a second, and like she realizes, she's like, I was told that they would be safe. I was told that like nothing would happen, because it turns out that Neva convinced Saint Dane to, instead of killing all the people in the flume, to send them to Elong, to let Elong be her little science experiment of, will people naturally just choose the right path to take by dumping them all there? Which turned out to be why Neva did nothing wrong. Well, no, she didn't do anything wrong. She ultimately did the best. She's the only reason we succeeded is because Ellie got to her a little bit and she revealed that like they're on Elong and like the 80,000 people are in Blackwater. They're on Elong, and that's what's keeping the spirit of Solara alive. The lesser of several evils, exactly. At this point, like, because she's been tied to Saint Dane's Dark Solara, if she dies, she doesn't go back to Solara. Her spirit is just no longer exists, and Saint Dane ends up killing her and turning her to dust, and she like fades away and says Elong at the last second. So she ends up getting dusted. So they head to Blackwater. They head to Elong, and in Leandra, because he meets up with Boone first, I think. We find out that like what's going on. Ravinia is in charge of of Leandra on Elong, and they have repealed Edict 46. So Gars are back on the menu, baby. When Bobby ends up actually also at one point, because like Boone works for Ravinia because that's all you can do. You know, you're stuck like working in a Horizon compound more or less. But he works in all like the tunnels and stuff. Like he's basically like a plumber, a janitor, but he like knows back places and stuff. And they like he realizes that Blackwater. The Gars have learned to tame the Tangs, the like fucked up velociraptors, with like a dog whistle, more or less, and that Leandra is sending a Klee army that are mostly Dados to Blackwater. They get to Blackwater, and it turns out that there's like everyone's fucking there. They have like they fly in their gig to Blackwater to try to like find the people, and they get shot out of the sky by like microwaves, and they like are coming down and crash when like all of a sudden all these Gars and like some other people, because the Gars are shorter than like the Yanks, and so we've learned about the Yanks are the people who survived the flume, and they're a bit shorter just like due to genetics, I guess. And there's like this big badass lady who shows up, and they're like, let me see him, and it pulls out and she goes, it's been a while, Bobby. And we find Courtney, who's become a badass leader of the Gars and the Yanks here in Blackwater. Courtney's alive. Everyone's fucking alive. Well, no, a lot of people died. Courtney talks about how when she got dumped through the flume, like everyone woke up slowly in the middle of a clearing on Elong, and like Tangs had came, and so they woke up to the screams of the outer people getting eaten, and it was fucked. But they ultimately like saved shit and have like worked, and because they have like they know about technology and like the link cubes, they've made what look like giant like a cat like tunnel that you would have them play with. It kind of looks like that with two sticks on it is how I pictured it, and it can like radio pack, and it basically shoots radio waves. It could shoot the gigs out of the air, and it's basically like a controlled EMP, and it can destroy fucking deactivate the Dados. They end up that army comes and attacks Blackwater. They end up like defeating it, and there's like a backup strat that they might have to do when it's like, hey, I know you guys are celebrating and this is amazing, but yo, actually, this is not anything. They're about to send like 100,000 troops of Dados to come and kill you guys. And they're like, will you help us fight them? Because they realize the travelers meet back up and realize that like now that they found them, they need to convince the Gars and the Yanks to fight. And they realize that they can't fight them on Elong. They need to bring the fight to Saint Dane. And that instead of trying to like win tons of little battles and very slowly deplete the last remaining spirit until everyone's dead, it's better to just use all of our power all at once in one big gambit. Like, let's just rip the band-aid off and see what happens. Either we win or we lose. But like, it's either we win or we lose today, or we win a bunch of little skirmishes and slowly die for 2 years. You know, like no one's here for it. And they end up oh god, okay. So they end up trying to pull one over on Saint Dane, and what the travelers realize they do with the last with the last amount of spirit from Solara, they all hold hands in the back of Blackwater, and they themselves create a flume because Saint Dane has been using the flume to send the troops through to Leandra to march on Blackwater again. Um, or they like suddenly a flume appears in front of it, whatever. Like they just show up at their doorstep and they just start fucking funneling out. And turns out Blackwater was real smart. They like do a lot of shit. They already evacuated everybody out. They decided in the middle of the night and just got started on it and didn't tell Bobby because Bobby wakes up and is like, "Fuck, they're here," and like no one's available, no one's around. There are some people attacking and fighting, but they pull out, and he ends up running with Boone. They make it out, and that they made a flume from Elong to like a few blocks away from Ravinia, and so they realize that by the time all of that's like they march through and whatnot, like they have a very small window of time to get everybody organized, marched up to Ravinia to like fucking use their helicopters and shit and waves to like defeat the Dado guards, blow a hole through the massive wall using this cool underwater train, and like go attack it. Um, yeah, so they hold back the Klee invasion. They're not ready for the big Dado invasion. They make a portal behind it and they march on the conclave, and that gives them a good amount of time. It turns out at one point that like, yep, they're back. A really cool thing that happens is when they were captured, and Mark was gonna get hanged. Mark did get hanged, and Bobby watched his friend die. Until it turns out that Neva had done them a favor and swapped. It wasn't Mark that got hung or got hanged. It was a Dado, since they look identical. And Mark is really alive the whole time. It was a fun little bit. They march on. They march on the Ravinian conclave. And as they get there, like there's like they punch a hole through the wall. They take out all of the Dados that are there, and like it's strangely empty. They just kind of walk right up to the Taj Mahal, and at this point, like at one point, like the doors open and shit, and like they, Bobby's like, okay, cool, like some of our guys got up to the control rooms and have like shut stuff down and started stuff. It's good. Um, no, it can't, Steph. It's kind of funny because it drops below the thing. It like his you see the rope get taut or whatever, but they don't show the body. Um, they end up punching through and like a big climactic stuff where they like make like a barge and shit and like explosions, and it's really cool. And they lose people, but like people keep fighting because it's like this is the spirit, this is the final fight, and like there's a really cool scene when like um the other travelers except for um like Kasha, Boone, Mark, and Bobby, like they're marching in front of all of them, like all in a line in front of the big thing, like down the streets of New York City, storming the thing. It's really cool. They end up like getting to the Taj Mahal. It's weirdly empty. There's no more guards or anything, and there's just Saint Dane sitting on his throne in the Taj Mahal. And Bobby goes, he's mine. And they get into a small conversation, and where he's like, "You're defeated. It's over. We won." And he's like, "It's not fucking over till I say it's over." And they get in the most coolest fight where they're fucking beating the shit out of each other, and like Saint Dane will fucking punch him, and Bobby is like punched to the Dark Solera. Like they are like traveling through the fight, so every hit is like transporting them to another world as they continue their fight in and around the Taj Mahal, like going to this Dark Solera place that Saint Dane has and not, like just beating the shit out of him. And like ultimately Bobby beats the shit out of him enough to where he's defeated. He's done. And we get to Humiliate Me Daddy, where the like he beats the shit out of him and he goes, "You're done." And he like picks him up and he's like, because like at this point, like just they're both like defeated and weak, and like Bobby's barely able to keep himself, but like Saint Dane has like basically submitted, and he's like, "It's not me that you're gonna talk to," and he ends up like taking him out, and it like as Bobby like comes out of the Taj Mahal, all of the Ravinians and Gars and Yanks are outside of it, all just standing silently watching. And it turns out that they, like, all the Ravinians fucking hate Saint Dane because they were never given the choice. Yes, they were the elite and everything, but they were only allowed to do what he wanted them to do. They never had any choice. So once they saw that, like, the like rebellion was happening, like they were shooting, they themselves rebelled, went up to the thing and turned off all the dados in the control room, which is why there was no resistance inside, because the Ravinians themselves rose up. They got even, Solera got more power, and Saint Dane ends up, like, all the people, he's like begging on his knees. I think I can read some of it because it was really good. Like, the humiliation kink is that he's begging these people, like, don't you guys are powerful, like, I love you, you guys are wonderful, like, this is great, and it's wonderful. And, like, Saint Dane laughs and he's like, well, now we'll see which spirit is in control of Hala. And Bobby goes, like, the spirit doesn't control Hala, the people of Hala control the spirit. The smile dropped from his face. A shout came from the crowd. What have you done? What have you brought down upon us? Saint Dane raised his hands and said, I am protecting you. Even now, our army is returning to wipe away the vermin that has dared to invade our... No, someone shouted. They have no quarrel with us. They have only destroyed the guards. They seek refuge. Refuge? This is Ravinia. We don't provide refuge. And why not? Someone shouted. And then the crowd started shouting. And he didn't know how to react. They were no longer on his side, and no muscle. They said they were okay and everything's good. Like, the crowd was mixed with everybody. And then I'm trying to see if there's anything there. The battle was won by the people. It wasn't won by the travelers. The people themselves won, as they chose to not, like, as Saint Dane fucking sucks. Um, and everyone's there. Courtney's there. The spirit of Solara is starting to surge and regrow. And Saint Dane didn't have the power anymore, which is why he can't do anything. The final victory here was not decided by the travelers, or by the exiles from Second Earth, or the Gars from Elon. It was decided by the Ravinians themselves. For the first time since we'd left the Taj Mahal, I saw Saint Dane react. He stiffened. What do you mean? He growled. This has been a prison for them, an attractive prison, but a prison. They knew they were being controlled. They took their own freedom for their destiny, not the one you impose on them. And he's like, Saint Dane's shaken, and is like, but they live in luxury. They are chosen. They were slaves to your vision. And he's like, I protect them and reward them. And he's like, they just want freedom. And the Dados were all frozen dead, and blah blah blah. Saint Dane ends up, like, as he's like freaking out, he starts fading out of existence because the dark power of Solera that he created is just no longer being fueled, and it's like the Dados are dead because, like, he's got no muscle, and he just slowly fades out of existence. Um, like at one point, Pendragon, he gasps, his voice getting raspy. My adversary, we're not so different, you and I. His image blinked again. For the moment, I saw right through him. We both want what is best for Hala. We just came at it from different perspectives. Think, Bobby. Together, you and I embody exactly what Solara is about. There is no right and wrong, only balance. Together, you and I, we can restore the balance that heal the wounds. And Bobby says, you mean the wounds that you had inflicted? Saint Dane was losing his strength. He started to cry. He fell to one knee. It wasn't supposed to happen this way. I made mistakes. I was weak, seduced by my own vision. Forgive me. Please save me. Bobby says I can't. Saint Dane cries out, why? Why can't you? He's sobbing. His image winks out again and then returns, but not fully. He raised his chin, and I looked into those blue-white eyes for the last time, and Bobby says, because this is the way it was meant to be. Saint Dane drops his head, lets out a guttural cry, and disappears. The demon was dead. The spirit was ended. And he gets fucked. We end where we began and more. So, Bobby starts to ask, so does that mean that, like, we gotta send all the Yanks back to Second Earth? And Uncle Press goes, no. History has happened, life has happened, and we need to stop being involved. Unfortunately, everyone that is here on Third Earth is to remain on Third Earth. I am sorry. The Gars aren't able to go home. No one's able to go home. Everyone has to stay there. Mark and Courtney have to stay there. And the big question is for Bobby is, where do I go? Because, like, I'm not really from Second Earth. And the truth is that all the travelers, once they're done, will go and return to Solara. And Uncle Press expresses many times that like I don't think you understand, like you're not losing anything, because he's like Bobby doesn't want to lose himself, lose his memories, lose Mark and Courtney, lose the friends he's made along the way, and he's like, Press is like, you're not losing anything, you're gaining everything. You'll be able to slowly, like, you'll regain your memories and be one with the Slayer. You'll be able to be there for everybody. You'll be able to watch Mark and Courtney, like, be there for them, spiritually, and help guide them whichever ways you can. And like, and then when they're done, they will come and join you, and it'll be great. And Bobby can't really handle it, and he ends up like everyone starts writing their final journals because like it's still important to document everything that happened, and Bobby mentions that he needs a bit more time as all the last travelers, go to him, say their goodbye, and like they leave. Alder leaves, Lord leaves, until it's just Press, and like there's a really sad goodbye between him, Mark, and Courtney because they all know that Bobby has to go, and it's really really heartbreaking. And I when I just finished this book like a few weeks ago, I cried when I ended it. It was so much. It is you know, they kind of sit there and joke about like, do you wonder what would have happened if none of this, like, do you think we would have gotten together, him and Courtney? Because him and Courtney spend a night together, like they truly are in love, and like they like kiss and hold each other to sleep. It's really really sweet. The day before the invasion, and they end up he asks, he goes, I wonder if we would have been together, in another world, another time, and he looks at Uncle Press and he goes, I wish I had a little bit more time. He's like, well, take your time to finish your journal. And then Bobby goes, well, this is how my journal ends. Where is it? He's like, this isn't fair, and Press is like, I know. Now I'm writing the final words. I don't know who might read this someday, maybe nobody. But if you come across my story, please know that what happened to me, to us, was a wonderful thing. We prove that the power of the human spirit is supreme. It will always triumph, no matter what the adversity. There are no simple answers in life. There is good and bad in everyone and everything. No decision is made without consequence. No road is taken that doesn't lead to another. What's important is that those roads always be kept open, for there's no telling what wonder they might lead to. For the last time, I write the words, and so we go. It's my way of saying that I'm prepared for the next adventure, the next chapter, the next challenge. Whatever comes my way, I'm ready for it, because that truly is the way it was meant to be. End of journal number 37, the final journal of Bobby Pendragon. We then get an epilogue chapter titled Earth. I'm crying too, Katie. Thank you for the 30 bits. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. The epilogue is I might cry just thinking about it again. We go to the epilogue as the door opens slowly on Earth, not first, second, or third Earth, just Earth. Standing there nervously, leaning on the frame, was Courtney Chetwynd, the glorious Courtney Chetwynd, the girl with the amazing gray eyes that Bobby had known since he was in kindergarten. She never failed to take his breath away. Yo, Bobby said, trying to say cool. Trying to sound cool. As we get a nice little epilogue, as Bobby is now an old man, in the hospital for another time, like for what feels like the last time. And Courtney mentions, like, he's like, why are you here? Like, the nurses will be mad. And she goes, I don't know. I feel like I needed to come and see you today. Because, like, they both kind of know that Bobby's time is about up. We learn that Bobby and Courtney did still have, like, that kiss. And they kind of had a little back and forth. But ultimately, were just, like, competitive friends. They ended up going to different colleges. Bobby ends up becoming, like, a writer. He does a bunch of different things. He's a writer, and she becomes like a reporter, and they end up getting together because of like I forget what it was, but they get together for something, and ultimately they don't have kids, but they always travel around the world, and they always sign their letters for like the travelers. We find out that Mark ends up getting married and has 3 kids, and he becomes really like successful, rich for discovering something, and but he ends up Mark has a heart attack at 31 and dies. And so Bobby and Courtney kind of like they can't fill that role, but they do everything they can to be there for Mark's kids. And although Mark and Courtney didn't have any kids of their own, they did have a long life, and those kids are their kids. A long, happy life, and everything's really great. And it's this really, really fucking sad, like, she's there, like, they're both old, like, Bobby's, like, hands still surprise him, because, like, he doesn't know what to do. Like, a lot of the stuff is, like, talking about, like, what Bobby did, and, like, you know, Bobby didn't, like, Bobby played basketball in college, but he never wanted to go pro or anything. Um, you know, that wasn't it. But they were holding hands. There's no monitors because, oh yeah, there's no monitors or any vitals or anything because Bobby says if I'm breathing, that's vital enough for me, and the doctors don't argue. And at one point, Bobby looks at Courtney and says, "It's okay, you know, I'm good with this." And Courtney nodded, and he says, "You should be too." And she's like, "I am. I just kind of got used to having you around." And he asks, "Did you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't come over to my house that night?" He asked. She goes, "The night of the basketball game," and Bobby nodded, and she goes, like, "Nothing would have changed. Destiny's a funny thing. It would have happened." She gives him a kiss, and it's sweet, and they then get interrupted. Um, they both looked up quickly, embarrassed that they'd been caught kissing. Standing in the doorway, this is a hospital room, uh, was a man who looked to be in his 40s. He wore a long, light brown coat over jeans and a work shirt. His brown hair fell below his ears. It looked like he hadn't shaved in a few days. "Didn't mean to interrupt," the man said. His eyes were on the ground, but Bobby could see that he was smiling. Um, he's like, "Don't stop on my account," you know, all that sweet stuff. And he said, "Stop. What are you looking for?" He's like, and the man says, "I'm looking for you, Bobby." And Bobby goes, "Bobby? No one's called me that since I was a kid. Who are you?" And he's like, "I'm here to deliver something to you. Is that okay?" He said, "Sure, as long as it's something decent to eat." The guy chuckles and pulls out a white cardboard box. And it's garden poultry fries, which I mentioned in the last stream. But like, they love this fucking place called like the Garden Poultry and their fries, and like the place I'm assuming at this point has been closed, but like they're fucking living their best goddamn life, enjoying it. Um, and they're like, you know, they got some French fries, and Courtney asks, "Why are you here so late at night?" And the guy answers, "Because it's time." They look at each other again. They get the fries, and it's fucking delicious. And the guy goes and he gives them a cardboard box which has the fries in it, as well as a roll of yellowed paper tied with leather twine. Um, you know, he's like, "It is a treasure of sorts." And then like Courtney gets in, like a little pissed off. It's like, "What's this all about, young man? Mr. Pendragon is not a well man. He doesn't need to be bothered by." And she goes, or the man goes, "I'm sorry. I don't mean to bother you, but I would like you to do something for me." "What's that?" "Read. Read. Read." "That's right. In this box is a story, a good one, told in 37 chapters." He held up the roll and added, "This is the first chapter. The rest are in here. Some are in book form, some are recorded with interesting technology that you can watch with a player, but they're all part of the same story." Courtney asks what kind of story it is, and the man says, "You'll have to read it for yourself, but I can say this much: you'll be glad you did." They Bobby at one point like goes, "Do I know you? You look awful familiar." And he goes, "I doubt you'd remember me. It was a long time ago." And Bobby's like, "I remember everything, and you sure do remind me of somebody. You ever been to Stony Brook?" And he's like I said, it was a long time ago." He stared at the men, and then he was sure of it, and he knows who he is. He goes, "I know." And he like sits forward like real quick, and he's like, "But that's impossible. You sure do look like him though." And the man gives him a wink. And he has to read this story. And he's like, "I gotta go." And he's like, "Where are you going?" He's like, "Gotta run. I've got 9 more of these to deliver." He goes, "You should read it now. But first take a look inside the box." And there's like the fries. They act like little kids closing the door to eat them. And it says "ready." And Bobby says, "And so we go." And they don't really know about it. And like Bobby mentions that he's excited. Shush! Go! Lulu, I'm in the middle of something.
Oh, have you taken her out?
Yes, I took her out at 6.
Just ask.
Yeah, 5:30. She's just fucking like. Hey, I'm out here just about to cry. So like.
Oh, okay.
The book.
Shut up now.
read it now. And Courtney ends up going into the bed because like he can't really see as well and read. And in a clear, confident voice, she begins to read. Journal number 1, Denduron. I hope you're reading this, Mark. As we realize that the man who came to deliver the things was Uncle Press. And that for the beautiful epilogue, the last gift that they could give to the travelers was to let them live their lives as if this never happened. And that when they go to Solera, they'll get him. But it was Bobby's Uncle Press. And with that, we have finished the Pendragon series. And if Lucy did not ruin it, I probably would have cried because it was swelling with emotion. But that's it. That's the whole deal. We end where we began and more. This has been the Pendragon Lecture. So, thank you for coming here and enjoying it. Sorry to make your hearts hurt, but that's it, baby. Go read them. They're good. A very sweet ending. And I guess spoilers, I should have said that, but you shouldn't have been watching the stream if you didn't want spoilers. So, say lavy. Absolutely. All right. Goodbye. Not to everybody, just to YouTube.